Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Kseniya and I make videos for people who are going through the family immigration process. I'm not an immigration attorney. My videos are based on publicly available information, my own experience, and the experience of my subscribers. And the purpose of my channel is to give you guys the confidence to go through this process completely on your own. In today's video, we will be talking about the form I-824, also called Application for Action on an Approved Application or Petition. So in the first half of this video, I will talk about some of the most important things you need to know about this form. And in the second half of this video, we will go over this form step by step. So have you made a mistake on the form I-130? Perhaps you have made an error in the section of the form which asks where the beneficiary will apply for a green card, which are the questions 61 and 62 in part 4 of the form I-130. Perhaps you have first indicated that they will apply for a green card inside the US, but your beneficiary has left the United States and needs to continue the process via your consulate, or perhaps you didn't indicate anything in these questions at all, and USCIS is now demanding that you submit this mysterious I-824 form so that your application can be transferred to the NVC for further processing. There are additional reasons why people may use the form I-824. However, in majority of cases, the reason this form is used is because of this kind of error that has been made. If you are somewhat already familiar with the family-based green card process, you may know that for the most part, USCIS only handles the cases of applicants who are currently present in the United States. When it comes to applicants who are applying for a green card from outside the United States, that is handled by the National Visa Center, the NVC. And unfortunately, in the circumstances where USCIS needs to transfer your case to the NVC, they make you submit this additional form I-824 and pay an additional fee. Unfortunately, this process is costly and lengthy. The current I-824 processing times vary anywhere between 3 months to 6 months to years. In addition, the fee for this form is also quite expensive. At this time, it is $465, but USCIS did recently announce that they will be raising their fees, so you always want to make sure that you use the USCIS fee calculator to confirm the actual fee for this form. Additionally, if you have indicated that the beneficiary will do consular processing, however, they are currently inside the US, if your beneficiary is otherwise eligible to adjust status in the United States, you may simply go ahead and do so. Please carefully review your family, employment, or diversity visa category to make sure that you're eligible to adjust status first. If you already have a pending case with the NVC, you should use the public inquiry form to notify them that you will be adjusting status in the United States. If you have already paid the NVC fees, but now you are in the US trying to adjust status, you will have to pay all the necessary fees associated with the adjustment of status, regardless whether or not you have already submitted the payment when you were going through the NVC process. And finally, the filing address for this form can be found on the USCIS site. They do tend to change every few months, so you also want to make sure that you go to the USCIS site related to this form and check out where exactly you need to send it. Now, let's complete this form together step by step. First and foremost, you can find the form I-824 by going to the USCIS site. And today I will be referring back and forth between the form and the form instructions, which can be found on the same page where you download the form. You can fill out this form directly in your internet browser or on your computer using Adobe, or you can fill out this form in pen, but I personally never recommend filling out this form in pen simply because it looks messy. However, if there are parts of the form that you are unable to type in on your computer, after printing the form, you can always fill in the rest of those using a black ink pen. As always with any USCIS form, if you're filling this out by yourself, you can simply ignore this top part and you can start here where it says start here. The way I'm going to go over this form is going to be a little bit out of order simply because I want you guys to understand who needs to complete this form and why. The option that you will select in this first question all depends on the option that you select in part 2. So before we complete part 1, I want to dedicate some time to explaining the different options that are described in this section 2. You can also refer to the form instructions on page 5, which explains the different reasons for using the form I-824. So the option 1A is available to those of you who misplaced the approval notice, the official I-797 approval notice from USCIS on an approved petition. And in this case, the petitioner will have to request the approval notice duplicate. Keep in mind that when you are requesting a duplicate approval notice, you will not be able to receive a copy of your immigration file or any other documents from USCIS. You will simply receive an actual duplicate of the approval notice. Let's talk about option 1B. It's for those of you who would like your consulate to change from the consulate that you have listed on your form I-130. However, this option is rarely chosen. Even if you wish to have your process held at a different consulate, that is something that can be requested directly through the NVC's public inquiry form, which can be done online and is completely free. The option 1C is for those of you who are participating in the follow to join process, who have obtained a green card or who are in the process of applying for a green card through employment or family or diversity visa category, and you have eligible derivative relatives outside the US whom you would also like to join you inside the US. While you are waiting for your employment or diversity or family preference green card to be processed, your relatives who are overseas may also initiate the process with the NVC to apply for their green cards. It is a common misconception that the applicants must first receive their green card through adjustment of status and then file this form for their relatives to join them. In fact, this form may be filed at the same time as the principal applicant's adjustment of status application. The next option 1D is for the majority of you who are watching this video. And this is for those of you who most likely made a mistake of indicating where the beneficiary will apply for their green card. This is exactly the option for those of you whom we discussed in detail in the first half of this video. So in our situation, we will select the option 1D. The option 1E is for those of you who are petitioners, but now you have become a US citizen, and that will consecutively potentially change the preference number for your eligible relatives. And in that case, you will need to notify the Department of State that you have become a US citizen through naturalization. But keep in mind that this can also be performed by submitting a public inquiry form with the NVC. If you have selected the option 1A, only the petitioner of the primary petition can submit this form. So in this case, on the first page, you would select petitioner. If you're filing this application with the Customs and Border Patrol, then you could select applicant. If you have selected the option 1C and you are the primary applicant for adjustment of status and you're participating in the follow to join process, then in that case you are the only person who can submit this application. So on the first page you will select applicant. If you have selected the options 1D or 1E, only the petitioner who originally filed the form I-130 or I-140 will be able to fill out and sign this form. So if we go all the way back to part 1, we will select petitioner in this box. In our case, most of you watching are the people who are transferring an approved petition to the NVC. Next, you will need to fill in the petitioner's full name. If the petitioner is part of a company or organization that completed the petition, you can type in the name here, but for most family-based applicants, this is not applicable, so you may simply type in not applicable. And in question 4, you will need to provide the current immigration status of the petitioner. If the petitioner is a U.S. citizen, we can simply type in not applicable as stated in the form and the form instructions. However, if the petitioner is a permanent resident, then in that case, you can type in permanent resident. Moving on to question 5. This question asks about the certificate of naturalization number. Again, if the petitioner completing this form is a U.S. born citizen, for example, then you can simply type in not applicable. However, if our petitioner is a U.S. citizen who naturalized in the past, then here obviously you will need to type in the naturalization certificate number, which is the red number on your naturalization certificate. Next, question 6 asks us to provide the alien number for the person completing this form. If the petitioner is a U.S. citizen, they will not have an alien number, and you can simply type in none. However, if the petitioner is a permanent resident, or even if they have naturalized, they still should fill in their alien registration number here. Your A number can be found on your permanent resident card or also on your naturalization certificate. Next, provide the date of birth of the person completing this application and their country of birth. Moving on, question 9 asks us to provide the country of citizenship or nationality of the person completing this form. Question 10 asks about the IRS tax number. Again, this is for those of you who are perhaps a company name associated petitioner who is filing an employment-based petition replacement or petition transfer. Then in that case, you will type in your IRS tax number. However, if you're doing this through a family-based process, you simply will not have one, so you can type in not applicable. Next, provide the person completing this form's social security number and the USCIS account number. The form instructions on page 5 also outline where you would be able to locate your USCIS online account number. However, if you do not have one, you can simply type in none. Next, provide the mailing address of the person completing this application. In care of name simply refers to somebody else who can receive mail on your behalf. Moving on to page 2. In this section, it asks us to provide the physical address of the person completing this application. So in our case, it's Jane Doe, and her mailing and physical address are the same, so we will simply duplicate it. Next, you will need to select the reason for request, and as we have talked about earlier, moving on to part 3, here you will need to provide the information about the principal beneficiary from the petition. In our case, like we said, Jane is filling out for the petition to be transferred to the NVC, and the beneficiary is her spouse. So here we will complete her spouse's information. First, we will need to provide the form number of the petition that we are referring to. In our case, it is the form I-130, and provide the receipt number for that form. The receipt number will be found on the form I-797, Notice of Action. You will also need to provide the filing and the approval dates, and those can also be found on the Notice of Action that you have received. Next, you will need to provide the full name of the beneficiary, their date of birth, country of birth, their alien number, and phone number. The alien number can be sometimes found on the form I-130, Notice of Action, or the approval notice. If you are unsure what your beneficiary's alien number is, then you can simply type in none. Next, you will need to provide the mailing address of the beneficiary. Since we're transferring the petition to the NVC, then simply the mailing address will be overseas, where the beneficiary currently can receive their mail, and the same applies to their physical address. If they are the same, we can simply repeat them again. The next section of this form asks to provide the information about the dependents, but keep in mind that this is only applicable for those of you who have selected the option 1C in part 2. If we have selected any other option other than 1C, we do not need to complete this section, and we can simply put not applicable in the first line of each subsection. Same applies to the foreign address of these dependents and their contact information. Moving on to part 4, this is where the person who is completing this form must make a declaration, provide their contact information, and sign the form. If you are the petitioner completing this form, then the petitioner must be the one to fill out and sign in this part. Keep in mind that while the date can be typed on your computer, that the signature must be made in black ink pen. It cannot be an electronic signature. Sections 5 and 6 refer to the interpreters and preparers who may have prepared this form for you. If you are completing this form on your own, you will most likely not have a preparer, so you can simply put not applicable. Same applies to interpreter. If somebody interpreted the form for you, then you will need to provide their information. And finally, the last page of this form is the additional information section. This section may be used to explain anything on the form that you would like to be clarified, or if there is parts of the form where your information didn't quite fit. In a lot of cases, the additional information page remains blank. However, it doesn't mean that you don't include it in your application. USCIS will reject any form that is missing pages, even if those pages are left blank. You still must print out and include this page with your form. As you can see, I'm unable to type the name of the person who is filling out this application. So after printing this form, we can go ahead and use a black ink pen to write in the missing information here. So for the evidence portion, if you have selected any options between 1A and 1D, the evidence for this form is simply a copy of the approval notice of that petition. Do not send the originals with this form. Always keep the originals and send USCIS copies. If you have selected option 1E, you will need to provide a copy of your naturalization certificate. So I hope that you found this video useful. Please let me know if you have any additional questions. Give this video a thumbs up so more people can see it, and I hope to see you guys in my next videos. Bye!